I still think about my grandfather and the way he lived off the land. I heard a lot of stories from my relations, the Morin family, about the hydro dam that was built around Sandy Bay and the damage it did to those that lived here. This is a story about my people's history and their way of life, which has meant a lot to those who have lived here, as well as those who still call it home. I used to wonder, how did this happen to our people, to our children, to our elders? This machine that came and stayed. Where was our traditional knowledge, way of life, culture, language? The elders speak of it. What happened to it? Where did it go?
medicine man. Ipawata nagkasamistai, ipawata ako sa liwag. Nag-uispi, iwita mo, kayas tansa tatis, patagakita ko, patsitsura ng ipawata ako. Gusto ko sa uwa, kitapiyaya, tsakakita ko, magsinstati ito. So, kita ko, iskisita, mag-diso people, without, a plane before the plane came here, I said, that they thought much with no dismiss. You beat the tapos at the papamuchi. And with the planes, I said, skidita, what the pay. The matter,
The Churchill River is approximately 1,325 miles long, flowing from the Alberta foothills across Saskatchewan to the Hudson Bay in Manitoba. Island Falls was chosen as the site to build the first hydroelectric dam in northern Saskatchewan to supply the power needed for a mine and smelter operation in Flin Flon, Manitoba. A license was issued to the Churchill River Power Company by the Saskatchewan government for a term of 50 years from April 1st, 1931. This authorized the flooding of provincial land and required payment of rental for the flooded areas, as well as the use of water. From the beginning, the construction of the hydro station came at a cost of the Cree people's livelihood along the river system. In May 1929, construction of the power plant began in earnest. The generators began delivering power on June 8, 1930. There was no evidence of anyone attempting to warn the Cree people of the impending flood.
They never built that hydro station at Island Falls. They never did. They got the license to build a hydro station at Island Falls. But that's underwater. It's 2 miles up the river where they built. The minister announced and approved the construction of the hydro station. It was on the newspapers June 15th. I have newspaper clippings that state that yes, the location of this hydro station is at Island Falls. It's got a 17-foot falls. You will find that there was no falls where the hydro station exists today. As a matter of fact, the location was moved. 2 miles of prime sturgeon spawning ground is what they destroyed in that area. That's why our people used to spear the sturgeon. Elders spoke of when it was wavy out in the lake, they could see the sturgeon rolling with the waves. There were so many of them.
Roland Ray grew up in Sandy Bay all his life and has devoted much of his time to research the effects of the hydro dam and determine how this came to be.
In 1928, they reconned the area, meaning they did a full-scale check of the area. The map states that they marked in Indian houses on the map, so they knew that there was Indian homes there, and still they went ahead to flood it.
Annie Richards, an elder from Sandy Bay, remembered vividly the areas that are now underwater and the places they used to live along the Churchill River.
pace di pairare con te, ti ho mai dato, di va. Ma che ti hai prego da vuoi skip. Adesso mi torna di scarsa che adesso per te ho tutto chi vuoi ora. E ho tutto scarsa la cosa, cazzo. Su corpo ja se vaatsuin kyllä pattarla niin sitten on vähän vakalla
Miksi joo?
korjaatsevat tekoot.
Korjaatsevat ne.
Korjaatsevat on siitä ottava kavetti. Se on mahtava. Ai sotsassa vielä tuolla että
Tudo pojat säälipi. On pisti ju sääpy.
Varmasti että tekee korjattaa.
He took that away when they brought in this hydro station. They took all their spirit away from the way they lived before.
The Cree people of the area became entrenched in the fur trade as their way of life and means of survival.
They call it Messina Rapids today, but in my language, the Cree language, this waltz was called Masnaswaga. That means in English, letters on the rock, meaning there's messages there that are underwater today, pictographs. Now, it seems to me that that is a historic site for my culture. I know our people existed in this area for thousands of years. Rock paintings show it. And the areas that they lived in show it. Right across here is where the Sandy Bay settlement was. 1919 they moved from the place they call Wasaagasi.
The people in here and on each. Malantay. Wasaagasi on the puhutaan mikä risti. Tipuolin taavitsuutta taavitspirai. En päätsis lähtee tiitutti. Jesti vaan. Näppiväjänsä. Vaan. Näppitäisä sitä ajaa sigaiden. Vaan ne on jesti se puolitasti. Länkit minä niin. Kayasa ni kuhumpan no oto ngitana ni wato este opo. My father-in-law, he got what they call a woman was just talking about Hudson Bay Post there, what they call Wasaagasi Lake. We built the camps there. Nobody stayed at that on Sandy Bay, the Sandy Bay now. That's where the people stayed before the power plant was built. That's where they stayed. And the account of that, the trader was dead because the people were trapping all over the place there. See, they had trap plants there.
Our people existed here. We have documents dating back 1800. They built this a trading post right just up the hill here. This trading post was called Sturgeon Creek. First one, 1800. 1801. They built another one, but a bigger one in the same location. Peter Fiddler. He was a surveyor for Hudson Bay. We have his journal all the way from Reindeer Lake all the way to Port Churchill, Port Albany. They traded in Loon River. They traded upriver. In all directions they traded from this point. That 1 year, between 1800 to 1801, you know how many beaver they brought to here from all directions? 5,000. The facts show that these posts were built to trade with people. But who did they trade with? Our forefathers, our grandfathers. They were the expediters of this land for everything it had.
Mama Chilipim said July of 1927. 7 years after she. There's people who she's going to say. Niet nannen schrijven zoveel. Wij zoveel. We zijn met een zoals we zijn zoveel. Je moet het zeggen niet dat je gooi. Dat je dat je gooi. Misschien allemaal wel met een niet heeft met je. Misschien allemaal niet heeft met je. Dat kunnen we met u dit dan ook. Niet heeft met je zo niet. Ik was zeggen schrijven zoveel niet goed niet. Deze match is een pater, zijn mysterieuze paters, nee. Paters steeds niet zo. Agora nem pen escoiu. Escoiu que me isso se jogo eu até o jeito de eu que a pessoa não pode eu sei tá chegando logo eu até eu tô me ensinando está Diego me na try me gas mais se eu aí quando eu tenho essa hora que primeiro o sei tá mas não sei na se Agora day after day we do sample we no chega when I sleep matches. Mami nagego tinisho na tieto tinisho na chipai go ni mama skata when I supamita to me more go fridge. No fridge. Nagego deep freeze no chayan. Tapi buat segasita segate aga mawa sego tote mewa. What's 1 cent? Ito pa, ngani sa ito. Give away. Wala ko siri-siri ito sa ito. Gusto mani dan tiritin. Imi daw sige dago. Iga kita pagitirita, wage ko gista, wage sina, nagage simide ko, agman to tayo siya patsita, agwani sige gimide ko, wage sina, natutup matsiso. Agwaya Mistinsione a tita to the Mistigoso at the Wawsita to go, powerhouse, dam cell sita to the opus season so an at Minan Piat and Bechipuagam, Padin so an at sita to the sofa to so an at Mr. Adam and no trauma. Mamma Nagego, Chigi did Tamuk.
Mistake tapitong giaya nani utima na kanipi. Kaponi wani gitin papa. Hindi tawag wes. Ewa napi yogi pagitawa ok. Ewa say kaamit siya tega mego. Ewa nego ay igi chista hot sik kinusiyo. Misigo sige adat. Mitat kinusiyo kumsis. Atsetta kutsin agum sisi va ka kuttaats nanto nanta 2000 naska kia kuttia vaska 3000 kia kuttia kinossia
Kinosana ke matsu nani ses nani de ke matsu no tsugu semina koiski ke se yo gan peche ni gan no tsugu se koiski ana ke sit no agen Kaya tangi sama nginti sama wasto umagasi ko. Kaya to sige mana gino isking gisit niyo. Ako magasi ko. Individuita mansa picoccia io ma a te che non ci io e quando non sopesi molta gente ya moya tuski tinagami ma chigi wani io poco aku ki pagita ho aku mena ki ma chi io poco to cha ka ke o fe ke wo ba ke sa me ko ako e io ti mi che mistegi a tuski no ke ma chi wo ma na ko is ni ma chi wo na na mono ta ko senan ko is e sapia ta ya pois que me chita peguita pagito indis que sem guia beta que pagito pa e gote que ta sorte do sio pagito hoy no que gin pa na me morre de boy aguando ko este gatos cargan pa na me kapigin pa yun exit ni na me agi charong asna puni charong mo iba so no man ni peguita ni tata indis que tenta que pagito tawich tone agi pagito wa Morera di vale una meta con agostita che non sia una mattina un modo a come na mia ora che sta su un modo che sta e spesso che si sa che so volta che è c'è o ci volta che è misca noma o mai mi più ma si a come na misco di una mena di in più per c'è poi vai a guardas che è sti padre a guardas che descrivi padre o se van mai padre.
The fishing is not the same at all. It's a total loss. Like, there's one place in the plant where we used to scoop our fish. Just scoop them with a net. Or even a paper box, you can scoop them. They were so plentiful.
You know, they told me, well, my father-in-law's brother told me, he said, you know, there was so much sturgeon there above that powerhouse before that powerhouse was built. When you see a cordwood, that's how much we paddle sturgeon, straight sturgeon, just like a cordwood. We paddle them like that.
For many years, the Cree people had lived off the Churchill River, which provided an abundance of fish to catch. One such location the elders remember was called Bloodstone Falls near the Saskatchewan and Manitoba border. It was called this because there were so many sturgeon fish caught here that the stones were red with blood. This is one of the areas among others where the Cree families used to spear the sturgeon for their survival. Some sturgeon grew to over 135 pounds and would take a few men to catch.
Mutta pongiskeli magne mutta näsi piret om Sarami up the river ja Sarami went down the river pagitahani ja teosti ja no se ne vaisen sa paunit pajan namia ja not stop as far as season and 165 pounds. No lo sé que voy a oír dónde era. No estaba de más fiso, no vamos que vamos a ver qué es na mío. Callas.
Que no sé, le tiene a mi camina que estoy aguana que sea. Voy que para a chegoma. Que no me escago sortir todo votes. Viste go falso monte ya.
Questo che si ne na mio. Pues pumite pakitawa tsuna na gaya su witegen payo na mio que sia. Maga ayama ni pitawa go. Kaya ska po na mitsigi tuitsi matsuga mo na mio. Niga ita tsuna matagaya mo. Maga moni tuitsi sin pitawa magata mitsigi na mio ni stone samana spawning and done.
Como cada sitio que por estaba de otra cosa porque estaba de goce ahora que está tres más que todo que tres matido ahora que cuatro o se toca muro y se lo se pesta para y de pesta para positivos.
Rồi các bạn rồi gì sao là sao này có tất cả này thì ta có năng chị thì ta có chủ sĩ ta các bạn Ochochimidi, Napoli. Panadega, Kaki Goni, Piga, Pieti, Wipina, Ho, Tataski, Napoli, Tabami. Why don't Omotio, Chipora House on Sepi, School, Motio, I saw like it. Kawa, the mouse, you can have the go we can have. The Kokaya, so what the poorhouse was, she said, the target, the match, Namio. Never may know tea, or tea, that's the idea, it was that the bike to the tag, she that the match. We say, take that, I didn't take that. Much of a diner, stump, right? Mama, right? Nope, no go with me, you get used to be. You would miss the room, she's.
Nistangi piti ne vanama. Kia tamago tamana, tagi signagati go tamatsigi go gituak, Nistangi piti. Moda the staus kite to Ago, Modeva Miskano, Sita, Mutante Tagis, Putata, the one they had to dump it into the river. You're supposed to skip it, and Signawa, see pig. Eventually, I did say, "Ma'am, sir, and my tagas, but I got on my tiggy, and my pizza pun and a man." Stay Pinocia from still doesn't so not so. We're going to get the more woman, I guess, not up here with the Sagos, Skagon and a man.
The elders also recount a recent oil spill resulting in a cleanup that was reported.
They worked till 11:30 that night trying to build a boom around the intake of our water intake, just to try and stop the oil from going in. They said there's about 2,000 gallons went into the lake, but there's more than that. Like, I was on the aircraft when we flew down the river and we went as far as Kipawachiki Lake, and you could see oil all the way till down there.
We never got a road, an access road, in or out of the community until 1970. So how would they transport these PCBs, these used oils? Where do they transport them to? And it shows in records that they've had or ordered thousands and thousands of gallons of oil. Where did it go? Between 1930 and 1970, where did all that oil go to?
The waste chemicals, for the most part, including oil drums and PCBs necessary to operate the dam since 1930, remain unaccounted for. The men who needed to work at the dam were denied employment unless they gave up their treaty rights. This not only meant losing their treaty rights for themselves, but for all of their future generations.
Losing my status, I guess, just way back in 1948 when my dad gave up his enfranchisement. You know, I remember I was just a young kid. I used to hear him talk about it. You know, I have to give up my treaty. As a treaty Indian, I had to give up because the company over here, Elm Falls, saying no treaty Indians can work. The only way they can work is to give up their treaty status. In Cree, they used to talk this to my mom and dad, and my mom used to, you know, why do you have to give up your treaty rights, your treaty status? But that is the only way we're going to be able to work and survive. Besides, they wanted us, young people, to get educated, but as soon as they're giving up their treaty right, then that loses our education rights as well, because there was no consultation process of our forefathers, like my dad was, you know. All he thought was he didn't know what other rights was involved with the treaty.
The non-native community of Island Falls and the native community of Sandy Bay remain separated by 1.5 miles across the bay.
Tapoy agamiga na may mistego siya ko tagage ya tek. Igu sama na giti tamata ni gito igawit sama go ipagote ko go ito.
I remember my father put in 35 years there. And I remember the hardships he went through. You know, they didn't have the same building to drink their tea. They were separated. It's good that they work for them, but they can't drink tea with them.
Hawanit nan, manocipito kayo nani kutta. Malupo ispitsawa sinaman, ikuto sa kagyut niya. Ya me da naman tiri misitta wagi me da wasagan naman ani misa taiga manocipagit niya nanit na ni daw ya yuta. Tapito ya wan pugi pagyam pugi debo. Kagi sinagi soma wali na nante tapito entati wasu no gutapuan. Asa ide ko spima utagi utya so gasuna. Utatas kami wan magagi tawag me utta. Ay sitga tay monit na manocipito ya no. Wasina mai ni po. Ni tapueda pizza is watching manema mugamagi o tawana pescocia pero naman ipisitti pa doon ang mga rote na na ni
more than 8 weeks ago na stuff used to be a window like washing the mine kali the rote na wala utay basta bitak uta mo to ni wala pa mami iskota kaya ito ni kotaga na usaso na kotaga no po ito bagit niyo muli no tipang utayan kahit sa
This shouldn't have happened. This should have never happened.
By 1932, the Island Falls homes were fully equipped with electricity, heat, telephones, running water, and plumbing supplied for free. In addition, Rhys Davis, superintendent of the Churchill River Power Company, encouraged the white employees to establish a club to help alleviate the effects of isolation.
they're allowed only at the time they're working there. You can go to the office anytime you want, as long as you got something to do it. They hired to do that, And then they built that big gymnasium. They call it a big gymnasium. They had a theater there. They had a curling ball there. They had a picture show there. And none of us people were allowed to go and see those things.
Since 1930, the Island Falls Hydroelectric Dam supplied power to the mining operations in Flin Flon, Manitoba, which is nearly 60 miles away. 1.5 miles away and 34 years later, the native community of Sandy Bay received its first electrical power.
People started realizing that, working over there, and they wanted to benefit from something at least, get power. They had to pay their power. That's for the guys in Island Falls, they didn't pay for anything.
The company required men to clear a path for the 60-mile-long power line from Island Falls to the Flin Flon mine.
I don't need that yesterday. I sprayed I don't know sprayed to coastal first about the house. Beyond so I started. Was it not man? On and because I had shot the mark 2 years and I had 3 years I had to see I knew it. Left on. The way I sit there. Yeah. 3 years I had shot the mark. Every summer you do that. They had to shot me. Okay, that day you'd be seeing it tower, said I'm lost. The chip one at the sun. It just burn your clothes. They must call them. Women, you teach you about your one, that was like a button. So that all and the face in. 240 calories to do that in Nayan. You could think by Nayan just for the leaves and weeds. Supposed to be 240 calories you got. Most of Nayan about the guys who want to stay in the legs. You legs, yeah, and the legs shower. Not the pescado, she was born,
Ovi on a nappy of nibby in the one again picture. You with a palm watch. What was up there? Man, I have married you. Wanted mission. You start I want to. I wanted to go to power line. I have married you, man. Hey, mother to my show like you. You see this number. I bought me something. And she was not done. I bought me to need beer. And it was beyond the power. After a week after the one, don't so shots. In Pomagan.
Safety wasn't practiced them days because that was their own little world. They didn't care as long as you did the job. They didn't care whether they damaged your health or anything. Like the odd time you might wear raincoats if it was raining, not for safety reasons.
With everything happening and impacting the people over the years, they still continued on with hunting, fishing, and trapping. Out on the land, the elders worried about their future as they witnessed their environment changing around them.
I started trapping with Grandpa. You notice a lot of changes in wildlife. A lot of things are changing since the dam was built.
It is fitting that the community was named Sandy Bay, since it is a natural bay that extends from the Churchill River system. The Island Falls community had sewage ducts emptying into this bay. The Island Falls town dump site was also regularly bulldozed into the water system. After receiving electricity in 1964, Sandy Bay was afforded a sewage treatment facility, which supplied clean water to the community. Prior to this, the people utilized the bay as their only water source.
Devastation. You know, it's devastation, you know, the environment, the inhabitants, the semi-aquatic animals are gone. When you start dumping, you know, oil into the river and garbage and whatever else, your ecosystem is gonna die.
Well, there's a pump house just on the other side of that island there. That's where the sewage came down. The Sandy Bay downriver. They had their dump just up there too, and they pushed that into the water. When we were growing up, all along, all the shoreline here, would be people swimming, young kids. Pretty mad about that, but what can I do? A lot of people got sick. A long time ago, I can remember there was hardly any diabetes. A lot of people in Sandy Bay are sick with diabetes and heart disease and all this, kidney problems. The ones that were working at Island Falls, most of them are all passed away. They tried to fight. They knew it wasn't right. Things were changing and they were trying to fight with. They knew it was wrong.
Kuan nagaganda na matpio kan usod ka sandi pio. Mapio ko matsio siya yak. Ego piage toski na pio wes ka wataga toski. Noche na mo mau na no sude. Sampu apat tangagi dawan yanta. Itawar kap magote. Uida wa sampu musik siga igi siga wesa vale. Well baro na was vega got kita.
1935 it's one way I paisa. Nu sinisha saitau atsa no maver. Mapa vachamisto. Una sisita puvat. Pio että musta sitä muuta ja meillä na matite. Tapi teillä jää mitään voitte ajaa syövän ottamaan. Sitä maatse. Mutta omida idämä päivässä on. Vai tyhjä neili tamakin on mitäkin sitä, että se on uskotta, mutta idämis on. Vanhaa pittävää. Mullakin poisti onkin voi mutta ääni. Ja muistettavaa koko. Ja vois pioa kaikki sitä, että se nimetä ne pioakin pakit nää. Saaketa mistä kokkuutin pollen kriisumat vapaapura. Lisää lappu mutta saakin jää. Ja voi puhua, että täällä sitä. Ja saa lappu, mutta se on Ahora para que nada, no me den pea. Y bueno, para que la pite a todo, no. Y mucho no más. Otra tanto basta, van a ver, no me gastas que nada. Y bueno, kim syy on vaan muuten poistuu siitä. No mä täisin. Tuli opskaa, minne piuttiin se nobei.
Yapitmistagi tagamigani awan migotagagi usitsagati yapitki papma putti amtuni misagi pegon minstigosawi paputti. Ido mamodagi goegota modagi go paustugo to sitago nigi usita tsego medo paidamo. Igi pagisago igi tawi pagisago. Wagi pagitsi pinawan pintuni misirani mistagwato yoko in some places down the river kapis kosti yani unuti utaputi nasupi aputi nasa pagay tu itsagiluagi na mesa gigos spirito gani tansito gipasa kagis padeo tsinamiyo gigos kagi na mati tsiginuisis mediginan payok ito ni dari apa tsiginuisinan payok running up the river, I pagitawat napi of first sturgeon. I get pagitawat. Hinan pa siyo ito. Biris mo sigo up the river Aska Point Vietnam. Down the river guys,
This channel is man-made. When they first did a recon of this area, this river did not exist. It was a bay. It was a natural bay here. And all they did was drill holes, stick that dynamite in. They finished drilling the holes, they added cap, and boom. Our elders have told us that for 3 months they could not drink the water, they could not put their nets in. Nets were their survival. This river was their lifeblood.
Well, she Uttaski on paukläinen, mutta kaski utaroaska. Pissi muuten ja on se lähtö patseita, eikä säskit se koko. Ne on paran, syliskeitin ja piikit läskit, vatsaita kohta. Niitä kannattaa jäädä Papa piritsillä povarikin kohtaa, kun tuoltaani vitsi. Voiko kahden tyysillä, että tästä kun se on otatuu se tänne ottaa, kun ja tuossa syylittiin jottavissa.
But the whole truth is there, what Granny said. Because she said there was a reserve surveyed there. Reserve boundaries are made on the rocks with X's, just like teepees. And that's what's located over there. Right around number 1 pin. It had Indian Reserve, 195. It happened from the top going down. Like that's from the Department of Interior and down to the lower agencies. We have all the documents. You know, that's why I'm able to say to you, in 1930 they say they took a plan to the PAW to get sworn in. The PAW is in Manitoba. Okay then, this is Saskatchewan. Why did they go to Manitoba? To land titles, when there was a land titles in Prince Albert. And that's the district of Saskatchewan. That is why it was approved. If it was reserved, they wouldn't have been approved. Well, you know, we got a Sandy Bay settlement, but that was created in 1930 when our people were shoved across to where we are today. All we did was, from where the original Island Falls is and the original Sandy Bay and the now Sandy Bay, all we did was shift those two locations. I have a report, R.L. Johnson, a geologist, 1960s, access and falls. Well, the town site of Island Falls and the adjacent Indian reservation had Sandy Bay. Okay, this is Sandy Bay. Where is the adjacent Indian reservation? Where would it be? You won't find it until you go over there to the right location. It's crazy. But, you know, there had to be a lot of misinformation, fraud, in order for that to happen. They never got this information until 1937. That's the Department of Interior. Never got this information, that their survey. There's so many things that you had to know before you could even start to do anything about what you were told. Like Granny said, there's a reserve there. And I believe it was 4 or 5 months before she left us. She told me and him, quit looking. You found it.
The material wealth accrued from the hydroelectric plant was for the benefit of the newcomers. The Crees were left to witness and experience the erosion of the resources and land-based economy, which they depended on for their survival. The surrounding communities have since established a Namu Stewardship Committee to look into the possibility of reviving the sturgeon population and increasing traditional awareness among the youth.
Itnata mitään se tupliasta. Amize wisi tagaati ne van me gusta yo te tutsagati uta.
Efforts to clean up the area are being brought forward to SAS Power, the current owners of the hydro station.
I know that's a step. That step that we wanted, but we still got a lot more to do. We have a lot of work to do. You know, it's a step forward, but we still have to do a lot of work.
Any compensation to the Cree people of the area remains unresolved.
Well, I hope that they come back and clean up at least pick up some of that stuff. Quit trying to hide it and fix the environment. The river is our highway. It always has been.
For the community of Sandy Bay, it took 34 years to get electricity introduced, 45 years to obtain indoor plumbing, running water, and adequate communication to the outside. All of these have been available at Island Falls since the 1930s. Today, the people continue to live in the area of their grandfathers and grandmothers, and imagine what it would be like without this disturbance. The people are trying to have the area cleaned up and restore the beauty and abundance that it once was for future generations.